A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Technology has allowed humans to communicate, to build, to explore, to create, prosper and survive. So right from those Roman Empire road networks to Gutenberg's printing press, modern mass media, and more recently the digital world, technology has been an amazing platform for the spread of the gospel. From the early church onwards, and now as an age of artificial intelligence is upon us, it's beginning to shape and change our modern world. Our attention's turning to how we understand God and modern tech. How do we understand the formation of what you might even call techno-culture? And what role can Christians aspire to in shaping the technology industry? Well, right now, Christians are networking together to pray, to think, reflect and discuss how their worldview engages with our modern age, with FaithTech groups forming around the nation. Well, our special guest today is Adrian Tam. He's the Regional Manager of FaithTech Oceania. Adrian's based in Sydney, and he's joining me today in the studio. Adrian, a special welcome along to 2020.
Thanks so much, Neil. Great to be back with you guys.
Adrian, you like to contrast the world's way of building and creating, especially when it comes to building technology, with a distinctive Christian way of doing that. Some people might be thinking, oh, it's all the same, isn't it? How do you sort of differentiate?
Yeah, great question. I think, like you were saying in your intro, so much of the tech world is about building technology, right? Creating solutions to problems. And sometimes I think from a Christian lens, we think, okay, how do we create Christian tech products then? So is it Bible apps? Is it, tools to help church ministry and all that kind of thing? And obviously that's a very valid expression of bringing the Christian world and the tech world together. But I think maybe a deeper way of thinking about it is not just what are the products or platforms or apps that you're building, but actually is there a way of building, so less about the output, but more about the process. Is there a way of building technology that is actually uniquely Christian? And I think there is. And yeah, let's keen to get into that. But I think there's a way of not just what you're building, not just the products at the end of the process, but the process itself. Is there a way of building that actually honors Christ and actually allows us to be transformed into His image and likeness?
I love your thinking on this. And if it's about process, if it's about honoring Christ, what does that mean for the heart of that person who's sitting in a little dark room and they're at a keyboard and they're thinking, creating, developing, innovating? Is that something that some people would say, oh, that's just separate from what goes on in church on Sunday? But on Monday morning when I'm back and I'm working for my employer or I'm working for myself, the heart of the creator here, what are you thinking?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think firstly, that sacred and secular divide, I think I don't really see that actually in Scripture. I think, historically, maybe in the, more modern expression of the church, we see, Sunday sacred or church ministry and church activity is sacred. Or if you're a pastor or a minister, that's kind of extra important. And then everything else is secondary, right? But I see in Scripture and then also in the way that Jesus interacted with the world, everything can be worship, whether you're playing guitar and leading hundreds of people in song on a Sunday, or like you said, you're sitting in a dark room coding and programming, it can all be worship. And it's more about your heart and your posture than it is about what you're actually doing. And I think that's the point. Like often, as Christians, we think that it's about us doing something for God, but actually what we realize is that Jesus is more interested in what He's doing in us than sometimes what He's doing through us. We think, oh, these are all the things I want to do for God, but actually God's like, no, I'm working on you. Like you're the focus here. And then the great thing then, of course, is as you are internally transformed, then the things that you put out into the world end up being incredible as well. So,
what do you say to people who think, well, Jesus, we're talking 2,000 years ago. He didn't know anything about tech. Let's get a little impression here from you, because I can hear this coming through. We have a big God who isn't threatened by modern technology. In fact, God is bigger than all of that, and He's way ahead. If He's the all-knowing God, how do you reflect on the God of creation and modern technology? Hasn't taken Him by surprise.
Right. Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, God exists outside of time, right? So God is not in the past, He's not in the present, He's not in the future. He actually transcends all of our thinking around that. And so, you're right in saying nothing catches God by surprise. And also, I think, one of our anchor verses, with FaithTech is from Ephesians 2, where it talks about that we've been created in Christ Jesus to do good works. So there's good works that God's prepared in advance for us to do. In other words, God is the original creator, and He's created us in His image to create alongside Him. And so all of the ideas and things that we're coming up with, all the innovative stuff, it might seem real cutting edge, but actually who put those thoughts and ideas into our mind? Or maybe more to the point, who gave us the ability to be able to think that way and create that way? Well, it's actually from God Himself. So I think that's one way of looking at it. I think maybe another way is, in Ecclesiastes, it says that there's nothing new under the sun, right? In the sense that, yes, maybe, AI didn't exist, in 1700 or whatever it was. But in a sense, the deeper reality of what it represents, maybe it's all the same thing, just packaged in different ways and different ways of expression. But at a heart level, humanity hasn't really changed.
You're talking about how Christians interact with technology to influence the world that's around us. And the creation of what some might call, you could call it a subculture, techno-culture. That's a terminology no doubt you're familiar with. Sure. And what you're trying to do, I guess, in connecting people who are in tech together to talk about, to reflect on these things, is about forming something of a subculture of tech people who are able to work together and inspire one another.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I love that word subculture. Because I think our identity as Christians is we're to be salt and light, right? And the idea is that you're sprinkling, God's people, His presence into a world and a culture that is hostile towards God, and we start to see change from the inside out. So I'll give you an example. I think one of the ways of creating technology in the world is we would describe it as a reckless approach, right? So the kind of reckless approach to creating technology is the mantra is move fast, break things, right? I think it was Mark Zuckerberg who many years ago said that exact thing. So he said this. He said, unless you're breaking stuff, you're not moving fast enough, right? So we want to be the early mover advantage. We're trying to disrupt the industry, all that kind of thing. But obviously, the problem with that approach is, yes, you might be really successful, be able to make a lot of money, push out the competition, but there's actually an exploitative nature to that. It's actually, I'm here to dominate. If you lose, then I win. And it actually treats people as commodities, right? You're trying to climb a ladder, you're trying to dominate people. And that's a culture that I think is at odds with kingdom culture. So how do Christians who are in technology, how do we build in such a way that's not exploitative, but what we like to say, redemptive? What does that look like? What's different about it? Yeah.
So there are some boundaries. Some will be thinking a moral boundary, kingdom boundary, and for some, breaking things might be their thought of how you innovate and break new ground. But what you seem to be intimating here is that a kingdom culture in tech says together we work for the good of humanity and not for something that's going to break humanity.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And of course, look, I'm not saying that, Mark Zuckerberg's an evil person or anything, nothing like that at all. I'm saying that the kind of deeper mentality is actually in the same way that Jesus came not to be served, but to serve. A Christian in tech should have the same posture. And so even if it means that, yes, we want to create products that disrupt the market or industry in some way, the ultimate agenda is not to just dominate or to push out the competition, but we're here to serve and we're here to love and we're here to give and not just take and win.
Have you been surprised with the uptake of people who are wanting to join your FaithTech groups? You've got a number of these established now. Whereabouts are they actually functioning right now?
Yeah. So FaithTech's very new in Australia, essentially just about a year old. But we've now got an active community in Sydney. We've got one in Adelaide. And actually tonight we're launching in Brisbane. And then, Melbourne's right around the corner as well. So, and what we mean when we say we've got an active community, we mean obviously we've run a launch event, but more importantly, we've got a team. We've got a key team of people who are, and these are all obviously committed Christians, love Jesus, but they're working in the industry. And their whole goal is to bring together a community in their city of people who share those two same passions. They love Jesus, they love technology, and they want to start meeting one another, getting to know one another, and build that sense of connection and shared mission.
Tonight, when you have your launch in Brisbane and an exploration of theology and technology, and I know that a lot of listeners, that'll captivate their imagination about being part of this. Your launch tonight is at the Vita Nova in Woolloongabba, starts at 6:30. Yep. You've got a panel of guests. Now, these are the ones you're saying, this is like your committee of people who are driving this. Experts in blockchain technology, software development, even quantum computing. These guys are going to be at this event tonight and sitting around and perhaps answering some Q&A from visitors. Yeah, that's right. And we want people who are right at the coalface of things to be wrestling through this together. They're not just sitting in an ivory tower somewhere, academics. These are people who are like right on the ground, building technology, working in the industry. And tonight's topic, like you said, is all about trying to build together a theology of technology, which maybe those two words don't often get put together in the same sentence. But is there a Christian way of understanding technology? And I think there is. And it's not just about pragmatics. It's a deeply biblical approach that connects to our understanding of God, our understanding of the human story. And actually, one of the panelists is a good friend of mine. He actually officiated me and my wife's wedding many years ago. But so he's a pastor in the area in Brisbane. His name's Dave Myers, and he very well read theologically. Also a pastor. Also is an early adopter of lots of technology. So he's going to help to steer and guide that conversation as well.
Life, culture, and current events from a biblical perspective. 2020 on Vision.
A great conversation you might like to join into. We're talking about tech and the formation of a FaithTech group and the launch happening in Brisbane tonight. There's already these groups happening in places like Sydney or in Adelaide. Adrian Tam is our special guest. He's the regional manager of FaithTech Oceania. And you can join into our conversation on 1-800 316 316. Adrian, you like to talk about reckless, responsible and redemptive ways that we can deal with technology. Unpack those a little for us.
Yeah. And we talk about this in the context of creating technology, but it can be used as a framework for any type of creative work, actually. So reckless, like we were saying, kind of the mantra is move fast and break things, right? So it's this almost exploitative posture where I win, you lose, and it treats people as commodities. But the slightly, maybe more than slightly, the better way, or the kind of one step forward from there is the responsible approach. So it's not reckless, but it's responsible. So it actually takes into account things like ethics and values and the wider implications of what we're trying to do. I think there's been a big push towards this in recent years through things like, corporate social responsibility and just an awareness of, is there a negative impact of what we're doing? And let's try to minimize harm. So if the reckless approach was about move fast, break things, the responsible approach, you could say, is slow down, fix things. So we're actually taking the time to consider, pause, count the costs, and let's actually move towards, some of the problems in our world and try to be a solution there. Yeah.
So some might be putting themselves into a camp, and people are working with tech now saying, oh, I like the reckless way. And some are saying, well, I know as a Christian, I want to take the responsible way. But it's not just Christians who might take a responsible path.
Right.
This, I imagine, leads us into the redemptive nature and the power of God at work in the heart of the person who's working in tech. Let's talk about that dimension, because this is a big dimension that you can ignore. And as a Christian believer, and you say, well, I want to serve the Lord, maybe I've got a gift here.
Right.
How do you actually respond and understand that redemptive way of being in this industry?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think one of the things that I see Jesus doing a lot in his ministry was people would often put him in these situations where it's like, is it A or is it B? Like, pick one. And then Jesus would often say, no, it's actually C, something you haven't thought about before. And it's similar with this, it's like, are you responsible or are you reckless? Well, most people would say, I want to be responsible. But actually what we're saying is the God-centered, uniquely Christian way, there's actually an option C, which is the redemptive approach. And so this approach, I think, is rooted in our understanding of who God is, who we are, and then also where is all of humanity heading, right? So I think our understanding is, obviously, God created the world. The world was good. There was nothing that was bad about it. But then sin entered into the world and actually broke creation. And so now God is in the process of restoring all of creation back to himself. And he fixes us first, forgives us of our sin, restores us to him. But now we get to join him in that process of actually reconciling all of creation back to him. And so through our work in technology, that's a part of that. What's God's blueprint? What's God's heart? What's God's design for whatever sphere you're in? And how can our work actually, in a really meaningful, concrete way, move creation towards his design?
1-800-316-316 if you'd like to engage in a great conversation today about Christians and tech. On the eve of, we're about to see tonight the launch of the FaithTech Brisbane outfit. I don't know whether you're calling it a chapter or a group, or, I guess people who work in tech, there's no geographical boundaries here. You can have people who can be part of this whole thing. You're not just in one location. You can have people connecting from all over the world. Hey, you might have your own contribution. 1-800-316-316. Let's take a call. Nick, welcome along, Nick.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's Mick with an M, not Mick with an N.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Mick, what are your thoughts?
Just that, yes, the world is tech and it's gone that way already, and it's a good thing all around. But I know there's Christians back when Henry Ford built a car that wouldn't ride in a car. They'd walk to church still or get the horse and buggy, but they thought, car was evil. But the thing is, the world changes all the time in all sorts of different ways. But basically, the testimony bringing people to the Lord is going to, you can have good fruit in your work and ethical and not to wreck things for sure. But in the end, it gets down to a personal testimony between one-on-one. And so, all over the world, you're going to say, I'm this and I'm that, and speak to people everywhere. But really, I think the gospel is not better served, but it's served well when it's seen in demonstration of the Spirit and the power, in the sense that we bear the fruit of the Holy Spirit.
Good thoughts here, Nick. Bearing fruit. Christians sometimes slow on the uptake of utilising the new tools available in the tool shed. What are your thoughts here for Nick?
Yeah, I think there's no one right or wrong answer here, right? I think for a lot of Christians who can be a bit slower to take up new technologies, often there's really valid concerns sometimes. What are the dangers, and what if this is abused and used for the wrong things? So I think it's important to have a thoughtful and a critical approach to technology. Other times I think we can put too much power, to these things as well, where we think, just because we use something new, therefore we're compromising. But what I see in Scripture is actually, again, God always looks at the heart. And so you can be slow to uptake new technologies, but still be, have a hard heart towards God. Or you can be the opposite and be an early adopter, but still, have a heart that's for God. So it's less about the external, but more about why and what's the heart posture.
And Nick, while I've got you, you called in. Are you the likely sort of person who might join an organisation like FaithTech?
No, only because I just turned 67 last week, and now the government's kicked in with a bit of money, so I'm sort of I'm sort of kicking back a bit. But no, look, I'm not against it at all. I'm all for it. The world, as I said, the world changes, and you've got to change with it. I've only got probably 20 years ahead of me, and I don't want to fill it with too much tech stuff. I look at YouTube videos on the phone, mainly Christian stuff. My heart, but I don't think any Christian's hearts are hard toward the Lord. We sort of adopt that from the old covenant, but if you're in the new covenant, your heart is turned toward the Lord and His toward you. And, I just don't want to sort of dichotomise too much. Christians are way too critical of themselves.
Yep. Nick, I've got to let you go. I want to thank you so much for calling through, and it is news time. Adrian, I want to ask you, let's stay with the spirituality of this, because some people will be thinking this is just, cognitive thinking. You're thinking about being responsible. Others are thinking about being reckless. But there's this other spiritual dimension here. How do you hear from the Holy Spirit when you are working in technology? And how does that outwork? Is there any sort of practical ways that you can say this is what the spiritual side leads us to?
Yeah. I've always loved the idea of bringing God to work. Someone said that phrase years ago, and it's the idea that actually you don't leave. Yes, your faith is personal, but it's not private, and it bleeds into every area of your life where it can. And I think work is a great opportunity to do that. So I think when it comes to tech, for example, you can actually build together a product design and development process that weaves the Holy Spirit into it. I'll give you an example. So often in the tech world, people love to fix things, right? A lot of people gravitate towards that industry because they're problem solvers. They love to jump to solutions, which is a great thing. Obviously, it's a really important thing. But sometimes we can actually jump to the solution without actually pausing to ask God, what is your heart for this problem that we see? And do you have a solution that you might want to communicate to me? And sometimes that can happen in really kind of subtle ways. Other times, maybe God wants to give you a really crystal clear idea that just to implement. But one of the ways you can do this is if you read the book of Psalms, you'll see all throughout this word Selah, S-E-L-A-H, right, which means to simply to pause, right? It's a pause that gives you an opportunity to whether it's praise, give thanks to God, or just to listen. And I think we need a bit of that in the tech world. Instead of rushing, moving fast, breaking things like we said, what if instead of building the solution first, you actually take a moment to pause, pray, to catch God's heart for the problem, and even to lament? What would that look like? I think that'd be quite fascinating.
Interesting when you say lament, because it's not all happy-clappy. There's a whole lot of serious stuff that's going on, and even the reflection on the real-life experience of a fallen humanity. And I guess when you're shoulder to shoulder or online in a group with others who are working in the same industry, you've got an ability to be able to grow together. Is that growing to maturity? How do you reflect on that?
Yes. Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up because like I was saying earlier, God is, I think, less interested in what we produce than He is what He is producing in us. So if you, for example, like you just said, if you had a group of people who are going through this process together of creating something, but actually they're taking the time to pause, pray together, catch God's heart for something, to even grieve the state of humanity, to grieve. For example, let's say you've got a team trying to build some kind of tech solution to the cost of living crisis or homelessness in urban centers. Yes, we want to fix the problem, but to actually begin to weep with God, just like Nehemiah was weeping over the ruins of the city walls, that changes you. That forms your heart in such a way that begins to align more with God's priorities rather than the world's priorities. And so you come out of a process like that, and actually you're being discipled. God's working on you because you're giving him space to do that in the work that you do.
How significant is it that, the caricature of the person who works in tech might be that they're a bit of a loner? I mentioned that, sitting in the dark room, tapping away and doing your thing.
Yep.
The caricature might be that they're not necessarily social on the same way that you might think of other extroverted type people.
Yep.
The team environment, is there a dynamic in that team environment that can really bring out the best in you if you're a person who thrives on tech?
Yeah, it's so true. We're very aware of that caricature in the tech industry, and it's true. It's very much alive and well. And we are trying to combat that through community. That's why at the very core of our strategy at FaithTech, it's something really simple. We just want to get people meeting together and sharing their stories, looking at each other face to face, sharing food together. That's actually a really key part of our events. We talk about this kind of threefold rhythm of eat, learn, and build. And so come together, you eat, you share stories, laugh together, cry together. And then there's a learning component, and then there's also a building, outworking component. But yes, I totally believe that, God has designed us to exist in community, right? Where we are all, bricks in one house. We're all parts of a body, lots of different metaphors that are used. And I think that, as much as this idea of the soul, solopreneur, the heroic, innovative figurehead, there's some merit to that. But I think often you will have a piece of the puzzle, but you need someone else who carries another piece. And when you actually start to connect together, then the solutions really begin to emerge.
I know our listeners will be able to hear that you've got a wonderful grip on the theology and connecting theology with technology. Your role in the overall Oceania is your territory, and that takes you even beyond the borders of Australia.
Sure.
Your role as a leader in all of this, just bringing this spiritual dimension. And I imagine that there are people who are in tech who would crave someone who understands them and understands where God might be leading people with that gift.
Yeah, it's very true. In fact, the reason why FaithTech started is because, it started in Canada about 9 years ago by a guy called James Kelly. So he continues to lead the organization globally. But it started because he realized that, those two worlds didn't coexist. So you can be a Christian in tech, and then in church, no one understands your work. But then when you go to work, no one understands your faith. And so he thought, what if we could create a space where you could feel understood in both of those realms, where you come together with other people who work in your industry so they can speak your language, they understand the real opportunities and struggles that you have, but then also you could talk about the things of faith in a very undiluted, uncompromised way, and then begin to wrestle and talk about how do those worlds come together. So we're trying to find those people. Who are they? Where are they? All scattered all across our country and across our region. And let's create spaces together where we can actually connect and learn.
My suspicion is there's lots of those people listening to our conversation right now, or might listen on a podcast a little later on. One thing to talk about vulnerabilities in a tech space and how things can be taken off track. Things can be, let's go and break something. But somehow or other, are we reluctant sometimes to talk about this innovation and design creativity? What do you think you should expect as a Christian who works in tech? If you submit your work to the Lord, what do you think that looks like for your capacity?
Yeah. I think there's definitely two equal and opposite dangers maybe when it comes to Christians and relating to technology. One is, like you said, to be fearful. And we're scared of where the world is heading, and so we adopt a posture that is, we're on the back foot, we're retreating, we're trying to conserve, protect, but then the danger of doing that is, of course, then you miss potential opportunities for the gospel, but then B, you're actually giving too much credit to the world. Actually, what does the Bible say? Actually, we are overcomers, that he who is in us is greater than he who is in the world. But then the opposite danger is to just unthinkingly adopt every new thing that comes out, thinking that it's all good, everything is fine and safe, but that's not true. There are some very real dangers. There are technologies, if they're put in the wrong hands, can really be forces of evil can do incredible amounts of harm. And so that's the other danger. Just go, everything new, great, just adopt it all. So we need to have both. We need to be, I think, courageous, be able to step out, take some risks, kind of have that Peter, step out in the water. We could drown at any moment, but we're trusting that God's going to catch us. But also have a bit of that Thomas, like, hey, I need to see the evidence. Show me the data. Show me the stats. I need to be aware. And I think Jesus loved both of those guys. And I think we need both of that approach when it comes to technology as well.
And there's a protection in the group setting, being
Yes.
part of the team, or, if you're in Brisbane and you're going to the launch tonight, just to be a part of something that's bigger than you, so that others have an opportunity to help shape your thoughts. But importantly, you have the opportunity then to be able to help shape the way that others are dealing with their tech. Hey, we talk about a great commission. A lot of Christians love to talk about that. But there's this co-creative capacity that we have. Co-creating with God, the ultimate creator. I mean, sometimes we don't humble ourselves to recognize that He is the creator. Do you find that people working in tech sometimes wonder whether God wants to work with their gift in co-creating together? And do you think that, maybe it's too early to say, I've got this story and that story, but this is the sort of story you're expecting, isn't it?
Totally. That's what we're hoping for. We're hoping that people will go back into their workplaces with a renewed sense of vision and purpose and dignity as to why they're there. I'll give you one story, actually. I was speaking to a guy in Sydney not long ago, and he's been a Christian for some time, and he works in tech in a very reputable company there in Sydney. And for the longest time, he's thought, maybe this is not where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I should quit my job, go to Bible college, and then become an overseas missionary. And of course, that's a great thing to do. I'm not at all discouraging that. But part of now his realization is actually maybe this is my mission field. Maybe, when you reference the Great Commission, maybe when Jesus is going to all the world, maybe the world that he has been sent into is the tech industry rather than another country on the other side of the world. So to actually approach his work now with that sense of mission and God-given calling and purpose, that's totally what we're hoping will happen. It's not leave your job, and it's also not leave your faith. Obviously, it's let's bring those two things together in a really compelling way. Sometimes
we're thinking of church, but it's a bigger picture, isn't it, when we think of kingdom?
Yes.
When we're talking tech, we're obviously talking about things that are bigger than a local gathering within four walls. There's a global capacity for people who really get, on fire for their gift here. How do you describe this sort of, we're not talking just about local church here, but kingdom?
Yes. Yeah, that's right. And, Jesus spoke, I think, more about the kingdom of God than any other topic. And so I think, obviously, the church and the local church is such an important part of that. Never, ever do I want to be minimizing that in any way. But the kingdom of God that's the vision. And if you think about, the picture of heaven, it's not just kind of one giant, never-ending church service, right? There is obviously worship in that corporate gathering, but it's a city. That's the vision we get. And so a city means that there's culture, there's there's activity, there's life, there's color to it. And I think if the vision is to build the kingdom, it means that we need Christians engaged in all different kinds of work, renewing all of creation. And our focus at FaithTech is the tech industry. Obviously, there's lots of other industries that we need that as well, but we're focusing just on this.
And this is not just in Australia. There are groups that are forming around the world.
Yes.
Is it a little bit of a momentum that's building, Christians working in tech?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So like I said, FaithTech has been in existence now for 9 years, started in Canada, North America, but now is very much a global movement. I mean, we've got one of my colleagues is in Lebanon, and that's a fascinating area. So he kind of oversees the MENA region, Middle East, North Africa. And the reality as well is because of technology, like you were saying earlier, Neil, we're not bound by geography as well, and so it's very much a global community. Tech is also now not just an industry, but it's the operating system of our time. It touches every part of our life. And so there is a great need and a great opportunity here as well.
I came across a document as I was preparing for our conversation today, the Lausanne movement, which is renowned for their appreciation and major gatherings about global evangelization. They've got a statement that's called the Cape Town Commitment.
Yes.
Or they were quoting that in the document that I was preparing with. And they're saying that the Cape Town Commitment affirms Christians need to place themselves right in the thick of the landscape of contemporary media and technology to effect a positive Christian influence. Is this something that, and maybe you've not been so familiar with that, but is this the sort of thing, putting yourself in the thick of it, not staying on the outer, but getting involved in the inner workings of where tech is at and bringing Christ with you into the big picture?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That is very much the posture, and I am familiar with the Lausanne movement. I know they gathered just recently in Korea, so I think they actually they renewed that commitment and that statement. But totally, that is the posture, and it's all rooted, in the Great Commission, that we've been called to go. And it's not for the world to come to us. We've been sent to go into all the world, just like Jesus was sent into the world from heaven. And so, yes, we are challenging and mobilizing people to, yes, there's courage that's going to be required because it's going to be easier in some ways to retreat and go into environments that are more familiar or where there's more people that agree with you and like you and everything like that. But we have been sent into a world that doesn't know Jesus in order to represent him. So.
Well, here's an opportunity for people who are in tech. You love tapping away at your keyboard. You love coding and you love developing and creating and innovating. Well, tonight in Brisbane, there's a launch of FaithTech in Brisbane, an exploration of theology and technology. I'll just mention where that's going to be at. It's going to be at the Vita Nova in Woolloongabba in Brisbane. It starts at 6:30 tonight for people who are interested in emerging technologies. You can connect with that meeting and with FaithTech because there are other expressions in places like Sydney and in Adelaide, and I think you mentioned a few more. FaithTech.com. FaithTech.com. I think you had good turnout when you launched your Sydney group. Around about 80 people were there.
Yep.
You've got how many registered for tonight in Brisbane?
We've got 50 registered to come along tonight, which is great. But room for more as well if people want to join in.
Well, you know what? There could be a little bit of competitiveness between Brisbane and Sydney. And if you're into tech, maybe you want to register and be a part of that. And I think you'd be thrilled if there were more than 80 that turned out for the first night. Just to reiterate, you've got a panel of guests, experts in their field around blockchain technology, around software development, quantum computing, and digital discipleship and theology. Is it going to be the opportunity for people to have a Q&A with your group?
Yes, totally. Yes, so both questions taken on the night from the floor, but then you can also submit questions anonymously as well. Through our Slido, so we're expecting a great conversation and lots of robust dialogue for sure.
And a little bit of fun on the side, as I understand it, and for tech people, what is the tech dietary requirement? Pizza is going to be on the menu.
Yes,
is that the case?
100%. It's a prerequisite.
Okay, FaithTech.com, and to connect with Adrian Tam and be a part of that tonight, I think you should get in touch with Adrian. You can connect with him through FaithTech.com. For those Brisbane, Southeast Queensland, Northern New South Wales listeners who want to be there in person, you can connect with that launch tonight at FaithTech.com. Adrian, thank you so much for taking some time to come and share your heart with us, and all the best for the launch tonight. And I hope you'll keep us in touch. I'd love to do an update and see how things are developing as things, continue to get this real momentum here in Australia. But thank you so much for taking some time to share these thoughts with us today on 2020.
Thanks so much. Thanks again.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.